Hello and welcome everybody to this event. My name is Jim Moriarty and I'm a Senior Inspector in the Licensing Unit in the EPA. I hope you learned something from this session on the Abstraction Regulations, and you can always check back in as the presentations will be made available for later viewing. Having a control system in place to regulate the use of our water resources makes sense. It'll help to ensure the sustainable use of an increasingly scarce resource and serve to protect the water environment. The Water Framework Directive requires controls over the abstraction of fresh surface water and groundwater, including a register of water abstractions and a requirement for prior authorisation for abstraction and impoundment. The law in Ireland complied with the first part of this in that a register was required and set up in 2018. An authorisation system is now provided for under the 2022 Abstractions Act, which was commenced in August 2024, allowing 6 months for implementation. This talk goes through the requirements of that. The Abstractions and Associated Impoundment Act 2022 and 3 sets of associated regs transpose the Water Framework Directive and introduce a registration, licensing and control regime for water abstractions and associated impoundments. The system of registration and licensing is administered by the EPA. One set of regs brought the 2022 Act into operation at the end of August in 2024. Another set of regs sets out how the licensing system works, timeframes and so on, and a final set of regulations sets the fees. Water abstraction is defined as the removal or diversion of water from, for example, a river, lake, stream, groundwater well or borehole. An associated impoundment then is a structure, for example a dam or a weir, that is maintained for the purpose of the abstraction. It's important to say that there are a number of activities which are not controlled and are out of scope under the legislation. Abstractions from coastal waters are not covered. Rainwater harvesting is also not considered to be an abstraction. Some golf courses and racetracks, for example, use rainwater harvesting. Also, rainwater which collects in quarry floors and is pumped away is not considered an abstraction either. The Act sets out a number of abstraction types which are exempt. These include abstractions for domestic drinking water supply, abstractions used for firefighting, abstractions which are temporary in nature, carried out during a civil works for planning, or investigations. If your abstraction falls into any of these headings and operates for less than 8 weeks, or if the volume is lower than 25 meters cubed per day, then it is exempt. The EPA is the competent authority assigned the responsibility for implementing the regulations, and to enforce that we have updated our website to include all pertinent information, guidance materials, links to the regulations and a frequently asked questions page. I urge you to take a look at this resource, consult our website and to use it. In particular, the Principles of Water Abstractions document available online gives a good overview of the legislation and the main requirements that apply. It's available through our website and well worth a read. Since the Act has come into force, the EPA has dealt with a large amount of queries as people come to grips with what the regime means for them. We have compiled these into a set of FAQs resulting in a lot of useful information, and you're encouraged to have a look through these. We do update the FAQs as new issues arise and are dealt with, and it's well worth a look as the question you have may well have been asked before. I want to highlight here two common issues. The first concerns the volumes of water abstracted. The volume is that abstracted in any 24-hour period. That means you should therefore declare the maximum daily volume abstracted and not a yearly or a monthly average. You are required to declare the total annual volume also, so the seasonal variations is taken into account there. Secondly, if you have no idea what volume of water you might be using, the EPA has developed a quick abstraction volume estimator tool that can be used. This is a spreadsheet which helps to give an estimate of the amount involved. This table here shows an extract from the estimator tool for use for water abstraction for irrigation of crops. You can see, for example, from the second row of the table that carrots irrigated with a spray boom use about 127 meters cubed per hectare. So all you have to do then is fill in the area that's covered by the crop, and the tool will provide you with an estimate of the volume of water abstracted to service that. The Act then goes on and applies a graduated approach to the regulation of abstractions, which allows for a licensing regime that permits proportionality to the level of risk presented by abstractions of different volumes. 3 abstraction bands are provided for in the Act, which are determined by the maximum volume of water being abstracted in any 24-hour period. Band 1, less than 25 meters cubed per day. Band 2, between 25 and 2,000 meters cubed per day. And Band 3, more than 2,000 meters cubed per day. We have a register which is set up under the 2018 regulations, and that contains information on around 1,900 abstractions which exceed 25 meters cubed per day. The map here shows that abstractions are spread throughout the country and shows the range of sources that feature on the register. Drinking water accounts for 60% of abstractions. We have agriculture, industry, mining, quarrying, recreation. So everyone from golf courses through farmers all the way to Ishgairn providing drinking water. The existence of the register has been very useful in understanding and forecasting the scale of the work that's involved. An examination of the register shows that there are 315 abstractions that exceed the 2,000 meters cubed per day licensing threshold. These will automatically require a license. The most common use to which abstractions are put is for the provision of drinking water, with over 1,100 abstractions for that purpose. The approximate 1,600 abstractions in Band 2 will be assessed by the EPA to see if they are a significant abstraction, and if that is determined to be the case, they too will require a license and will have 6 months to apply for it. For example, the table shows there are 82 registered abstractions under the heading of recreation. Most of these are golf courses, and we can see that none of these abstract more than 2,000 meters cubed per day. This graph shows where water is abstracted from. There is a difference between large abstractions of more than 2,000 cubic meters per day and abstractions of less than 2,000 meters cubed per day. We see that most of the large abstractions, some 2/3, are from surface water sources, whereas 3/4 of the smaller abstractions are from groundwaters. This rather busy graph shows the process flow and interaction between registration and licensing. As can be seen from the top of the chart, any abstraction in band 1 of over 2000 meters cubed per day has an automatic requirement for a license, while abstractions between 25 and 2000 meters cubed per day, a lot of assessments are required to determine if a license is required or not. The EPA will be conducting these significance assessments according to a methodology to assess the impact of the abstraction on water bodies. This will be the subject of a different talk this morning. The proposed assessment will be communicated to the abstractor, who will be given an opportunity to comment before a final decision is made by the EPA on whether a license is required or not. The EPA is charged with laying out how, for example, abstractors are to measure or estimate the volumes involved, what sort of records are required, how to keep them, and so on. General binding rules apply to all abstractions, and abstractions should not create a physical barrier to the migration of fish. Abstractions should not impede the movement of sediments in such a way that the environment would be impacted, and all abstractions need to be operated in such a way that leakage and other losses are kept to an absolute minimum. So from a licensing perspective, large abstractions were to have applied by the end of February this year. With the online application system rolled out around that time, EPA received and approved a large number of requests to extend the time frame to make the application. We have since received 13 applications and are working through them in line with the regulations. In general terms, there's an 8-week period for EPA to review applications and make a proposed license. There's a further 4-week period for people to make observations on that, and then a final decision issues at that stage. Everything is available online in terms of comprehensive application guidance and the ability for the public to interact, make submissions, view the status of applications, and so on, with the links available on this slide here. The schematic diagram here illustrates the licensing process. It starts with the receipt of an application. The applicant is also required to erect a site notice and to publish a notice in a newspaper relating to the application. The agency then proceeds to complete a technical assessment of the application under a number of headings. There is also consultation with specified outside bodies. Once all the information is submitted and consultations are completed, a proposed license must be issued within 8 weeks. Observations may be made, which are then considered, and a final decision to grant or refuse a license is made. The fees for making an application are €5,000 for abstractions exceeding 2000 meters cubed per day, and €2,000 for those between 25 and 2000 meters cubed per day that are assessed by the EPA to be significant and require a license. The regulations do provide for a reduction or a waiving of the fee, and a form is available on the EPA website for use in that regard. While there are around 1900 registered abstractions, we think there may be many more abstractions of more than 25 meters cubed per day that are unregistered. These should be registered, and the information required to do that is set out on this slide. A point to bear in mind is that abstractions from multiple water body types need to be registered separately. For example, a system with a groundwater abstraction and a river abstraction requires 2 separate registrations. To sum up now, some key messages. Firstly, register all abstractions with the EPA on Eden if necessary to do so. Update information on the register when you are contacted by the EPA and asked to. Apply for a license when you are required to, be that by the approved extension date or within 6 months of the EPA confirming to you that you are a significant abstraction. Those in Band 2, between 25 and 2,000 meters cubed per day, you can wait to be contacted by the EPA when we have the significance assessment completed. And finally, if you intend to carry out a new abstraction or to increase an existing one, you must notify the EPA in advance and wait until it is approved before commencing. Thank you for your attention and for listening to this. I hope you found it useful. You can re-watch it at your ease, and if you have any remaining queries, please email them to licensing@epa.ie. Thank you.